It is Monday, April 29th. It's my mother-in-law's birthday, by the way, Kristen Boice.
Happy
It's actually a
birthday to
big
your
one.
mother-in-law.
7 decades in. So, yeah, she probably didn't like that. I just announced that, but whatever. So she's out. I saw her eating birthday cake this morning. It's her 70th birthday. Happy birthday, Nana. But that's not what we're here to do. We're here to talk about mental health. I'm Mayor Chris Jensen, the mayor of the beautiful city of Noblesville, Indiana, that's under construction. We'll talk about that a little bit later too. But I'm joined by my good friend, licensed therapist and owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling here in Noblesville, Kristen Boice. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jensen. Good to be here today. I know the weather is a little rainy,
gloomy,
overcast, but that's okay.
April showers bring May flowers, right? It's going to happen. We
That's right.
avoided most of the rain this weekend. You were commenting on my tan, which I appreciate. I was at the baseball field most of the weekend. So that is courtesy of Noblesville Youth Baseball. And I hope everyone had a good weekend. I know you were in Arizona last week, enjoying some little time to reconnect with some family members, which is awesome. So that's a huge part of your mental health journey as well. So welcome back to the Midwest, and thanks for bringing the sun.
Yes, thank you. It was very sunny, so
Good.
that was really nice.
Good. Speaking of sunny, we're going to tackle some sunny or maybe not so sunny topics today on Mental Health Monday. We're going to talk about some anxiety, which, I love, kind of is a very overarching term. I know we're going to kind of deep dive into it. It's something that so many people, whether they know it or not, are probably are challenged with it, of all age groups. And we're going to talk about what it is, what it isn't, what it looks like, how it manifests, how we handle it, and hopefully give you some strategies if you are battling that or know somebody battling it, so are anxiety adjacent, to help deal with that. I can tell you, we were joking before we went live that Noblesville is under construction, as are so many cities across the world right now. It is construction season. So, even if you don't have anxiety on a normal basis, you might have some now because of just the surroundings around you. So we'll talk about all those things. But before we do, let's talk about some square breathing, which is one way that I, on a daily basis, try to deal with anxiety, is some square breathing. So let's go through a little exercise before we dive into this.
I think it's important to say when we're in traffic, because I know that's one of the things going on in the city right now is the traffic. This is the number one strategy that I can teach you to deal with the traffic. I mean, there's many others, or to deal with anything in your life that you feel worried. Worried is another word for anxiety about. It helps you come back to center, get out of that fear-based frustration, anger place, back to the present moment, and calms your nervous system down. So we're going to take 2 breaths. We inhale through our nose. We exhale out our mouths. Why are we doing that? We're doing that because we want to be in what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. What does that mean? Think of parasympathetic as peaceful place. We want to come back to peace. We want to get out of kind of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which is our people-pleasing place, into a peaceful place. So that's why we're breathing out through our nose or through our mouths, because that helps relax the nervous system. If you want to energize the nervous system, we're going to breathe in through our nose, exhale through our nose, which is very different. So we're going to take a big, deep inhale through our nose. And you can count to 4, hold for 4, and then release out your mouth. You really want a long exhale. So it seems like we're taking a long exhale. We are, for a reason, because that really helps. You can feel the difference in your nervous system. And I say practice with this at home. If you're feeling, and do it when you're not in the height of things. So when things are more stressful, you're able to access this strategy. So let's do one more. We're going to inhale through our nose for 4, hold for 4, and slowly exhale out our mouths for 8, like you're cooling soup. So inhale and let go.
I will say my old show choir director would tell you to make sure you're breathing from your stomach. We're not rising our shoulders. We're really intentionally going deep
to your diaphragm. It's like really, really connecting to your body. Because if you're not connected to your body, that's one of the things you're working on, reconnecting to your body, reconnecting to your breath.
We were just talking about this weekend during soccer. Viv Jensen was huffing and puffing a little bit. We were talking about breathing through our nose, not our mouth, to really get that deep breath to get us even in a cardio moment there or in a stressful moment there. So I always talk about this, but over the past 5 years that I've been in this job, this has been a huge tool for me at any point in time. People always joke about how I can be calm in times when I'm maybe being told things not so kindly. This is a huge strategy I use every single day in every aspect of my life.
Yeah, and you think of childbirth, like what are we taught? Lamaze breathing. What are we taught? We're taught how to breathe through pain, how to befriend the pain. And that's what breathing does. It helps you cope with emotional pain, distress, stress, frustration, worries, concerns. It helps you come back to the present moment to be able to handle and deal with it.
Yep. And modeling that for your kids is a huge gift that you can give them. I've learned in our house, even our little Emmy Kate, 3 years old, we talk about breathing with her, and she knows what it is. So it's a great gift you can give your next generation, is to show them how to breathe through some of these moments. So, all right, let's turn the page a little bit and dive in on anxiety. Before we start too, like if you're watching live, I know we have a lot of people who watch live, a lot who watch throughout the weeks, which is great. We archive all these videos back. But if you want to chime in, and if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you just want to say hi, that chat is open. We try to answer it on the fly for you, or just say hi back to you as well. So feel free to chime in there and let us know that you're watching here today. So let's dive in on anxiety. Again, Kristen, I think we've come a long ways in society around this topic and this word in particular, probably to the point where anxiety is kind of just say, oh yeah, moment. And then there's probably all these sub oh yeahs underneath it that you're helping us get to, which I think is to be applauded, and kudos to our society for normalizing some of these words. But really, anxiety is something that looks different for everybody, feels different in everybody, manifests itself differently in everybody. It can have physical changes to your body. It can have certainly emotional changes. So I'm excited to kind of dive in and reset ourselves, especially on the cusp of Mental Health Awareness Month of May. This is something to kind of dive in and really think about what it means. And I'll let you kind of drive the conversation. Then I would love to chime in along the way too.
Yes, let's talk about anxiety, because we throw that term out quite often. And what anxiety is it lives, I like to frame it in really down to earth terms. It's like worries. People say, I'm worried, or I'm concerned, or I'm scared. Those are words that are connected to anxiety. It's really rooted in uncertainty of the future. And so when we think of anxiety, everybody has it. Nobody gets out of this experience in this life without some worries, some fears, some concerns. It's on a continuum. I like to think of everything on a continuum. How often, how severe, how intense is it impacting you? Is it impacting your daily function, where you're having trouble getting out of kind of a freeze state, where you feel kind of stuck in a worry, anxious state, where you're having trouble with your body, it's manifesting in your body. So perhaps you're having shortness of breath, that oftentimes people hold their breath and don't realize it. Perhaps you're using food to cope, or you're drinking more, or you're using an external resource to try to make that anxiety feel more palpable, like you can manage it better. And so many things can quote unquote cause our anxiety. What we don't talk about is often we have things from the past, because nobody wants to, a lot of people are like, I don't want to go back to the past because that's over now. And that makes a huge difference on how you feel in the present. Is there something from the past that is unconsciously getting stirred up in the present moment that needs to be dealt with? Perhaps it's a trauma from the past. It could be physical, emotional, or sexual abuse that hasn't been dealt with. Maybe it's death. Maybe it was a divorce of your parents. Maybe there's something back there that needs to be tended to and processed. And maybe it's something in the present moment. Maybe you have a transition. Transitions bring a lot of uncertainty if you think about it. We have a lot of people, their kids are graduating high school. They're going to college. Maybe we have some college graduates. There are different life phases that create more uncertainty, that it's new. We don't know what to expect. We're learning a new skill. We're learning how to adult. Maybe we're helping usher our children into that transition. And it's bringing us underneath it some grief, because that's the trick. We don't talk about anxiety and how grief is attached to anxiety. Are we grieving what was? Are we grieving something from the past, but it's covered up with anxiety or fear of the future? And so it's really an and in both. Is there something we need to kind of address from the past? And is there something happening in the present moment that needs tended to or processed? What do I mean by processed? It means, are you identifying what you feel? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling scared? Are you feeling disgust? Are you feeling mad? What are you feeling? Where are you feeling it in your body? Like sometimes we can feel it in our throat. We can feel it in our chest. A lot of people get tightness in the chest. We can feel heaviness in our body. That means there's something there that we need to talk about. Perhaps we need to feel, we need to share, we need to really connect with in order to release it from the nervous system. And so anxiety is something that we name, but we really need to be asking our kids, if we're a parent, what are you feeling? And then help them identify their feelings, talk about them, really hold a safe space for them. So then that anxiety can decrease. So this is really important. Yes.
Can I time out on that for a second? Because I think that's a really important topic. That may be easier said than done, right? Especially with kids. And and obviously that's the stage of life, selfishly, that I'm in right now. I have these 4 little beautiful people who stare at me every day. Actually, yeah, some of them don't stare at me. Some of them look away from me and run away from me. That's a whole nother story. We're getting better about asking, how does X make you feel? But then walk me through, like, if I have a kid that says that makes me sad or that makes me angry, can you talk a little bit about what's maybe some probing questions, where we go from there? Because I'm sure you've been there before. You're like, okay, long pause.
Right.
Not sure what crap you actually answered it really well. Thanks. I'm not sure what to do with that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, exactly. Maybe hit on that for a second.
Yes. First of all, you're not there to fix it. So that's the first thing. So I always say you can't fix it. That's hard.
It's hard for a parent.
Hard because we would rather it be us than them. Yeah. I would rather me go through heartbreak, hurt, rejection, bullying, whatever it is. I'd rather go through that than my child. So let's just name that first.
And that's probably similar to, even if it's not a child, right? Like in a relationship, you can't fix somebody else's, right?
100%. Yeah. This is a truth of a truth. And as a therapist, I can't fix anybody.
Right. It's not your job to.
It's not my job. I'd be doing a disservice. That puts a hierarchy. Like, I know more. I am more powerful than someone else. Yeah, I'm a guide. I'm a facilitator.
Okay? I forget what the topic was the other day. Somebody mentioned to me something. I forget what they were even in the context. But like, I wish somebody would just tell me what to do.
Yes.
And I was like, it's kind of. Oh, I know. I have a friend of mine going through a cancer diagnosis and trying to find answers on how to, what they want to do. And I think they're looking at their doctors for, like, what's the answer? And I'm like, it's similar to it on the therapy side. Like, they're not there to, unfortunately, give you that answer. They're there to guide you to come to that conclusion. So anyways, it was just very topical because I just had this conversation the other day.
Yeah. And that's tough.
Yeah.
We do want answers.
You want answers. You want somebody to tell you what to do.
And I want a solution. Yeah. I want a solution. So as a facilitator, think of that as you, as a parent, you are the space holder for them to come and let it all out. Okay. Mm-hmm. You're the space holder when they're young for them to come in a safe way and tell you what their thoughts about how they feel about themselves, which is hard to hear. Okay. Especially when they get to be teens and they feel like they compare themselves to everybody on the internet. And when they're little and they feel like they're not smart, they're stupid, they're rejected, they're not included, is for you to say, that makes sense how you feel. Okay. I'm acknowledging that they feel sad. I'm like, that makes sense. Tell me more about that. Yeah. And then they're going to go on. Great. The more they go on, and we're going to have a lot of patience, the better. Because we're like, well, if you adjust, if you just come out of your mouth, you're in fix it mode. Mm-hmm. If you adjust or just do this or just do that, or if you would just do that, boom, that's a sign that you've already crossed over into fix it mode. So the key to parenting little ones and emotions, this is specifically tied to emotions, is allowing them to get it out and you going, that makes sense. You feel sad. Tell me more about feeling sad. Tell me more about it. That's a key one. And the other thing that I think we don't tell our kids enough is you make really good decisions. You make trust yourself. And this is young. I started my kids young. I said, trust your vibes. Like if they go, oh, I just don't get a good feeling about that. I go, trust that. Trust your vibes, trust yourself. When we empower our children to trust themselves or telling them they make good decisions, how empowering is that? Now they're not always going to make good decisions. They're just not. This is part of learning. This is part of evolution. I know I didn't always make good decisions. And those were some of my greatest learning in my life. As a parent, I have to remind myself, they're going to have to go through this to learn this next part of life. And unfortunately, there's some pain. So I will be here to help process that pain. I will be the safe person to help process that pain without shaming them. This is the hard one because I can do this. I can be like, well, I told you. Like if we said it's cold out and they don't want to wear their coat, you would go, told you this morning it was going to be cold and you wanted to wear shorts and a t-shirt and it's, 30 degrees out. To not go down that road is one of the hardest things for me as a parent because I'm like, I told you. But that just shames your child. Shaming means that they're an idiot. They're stupid. They're not good enough. And I know better than you, which, okay, we've had a lot of life experience. We have. But to come at it with shame only creates more shame in kids. And they're not going to open up to you and they're not going to talk to you. If you come at it with a fix it mentality, they'll stop coming to you.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And like I said, as a parent, that's a lot easier said than done. That's very difficult.
I'm walking the walk with y'all.
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
Yeah. So talk about pivoting a little bit off of kids, because I think that's important. But can we talk a little bit about what anxiety looks like in adults? What we might feel, how we might act, how we would identify that in others, kind of going down that path a little bit.
Yeah. What I see in adults is kind of intrusive thoughts about the worries. Like you'll be at your desk or you'll be trying to work or you'll be trying to do something. And that worry just kind of it's like an intrusive thought that just keeps coming into your head that you struggle with shifting away from that. Your body starts to feel, you feel physical symptoms. It can start affecting your relationships where that anxiety. So for example, like I can kind of go more to anxiety and my husband can go more to shame. So my anxiety can trigger his shame. So it's like, he can feel like, well, I'm not making you happy. I'm not doing enough. It has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with my own anxiety. And so recognizing, when are you feeling anxious? What are your symptoms? Like I know if I start kind of looping on something, like I'm looping on I need to be on time, for example. What if I'm not, instead of going, it's okay. I did the best I could. I left him plenty of time. Take a deep breath. And it's okay, because that anxiety, if I get anxious about time, guess what's going to happen with my family? It trickles down. We have a saying that anxiety kind of travels. You're going to tag other people with your anxiety. So the first thing is to recognize when you're anxious, what are your triggers? Because your triggers are on you. It's not up to my husband to manage my anxiety. It's up to me. And so recognizing, what are my tells of when I get anxious? Well, I start getting a rapid breath. I start wanting to control things more. I start wanting to manage things more tightly. And sometimes that can be helpful, but oftentimes it isn't, because here's the truth bomb I'm going to throw out there. We don't have control. It's an illusion. I can only manage how I'm going to deal with it. Like, how am I going to practice my breathing? How am I going to move my body? How am I going to maybe deal what's underneath the anxiety that needs to be dealt with, that maybe I've buried, or I've, done, kept busy, or I'm a workaholic and I've done that instead of dealing with it. And sometimes people need medicine because their brain or their body is kind of in such overdrive, or it's not producing enough serotonin. Maybe and I'm not, saying that you have to have medicine, but sometimes it can be helpful, like an SSRI, and that's a whole different conversation. So sometimes we might need to consult with a psychiatrist, a therapist, a physician. We might need to say, it's really impeding my daily functioning. I'm not able to sleep. It's affecting my sleep at night. I'm not able to get a good night's sleep. We know it's extremely important when we have anxiety. Sleeping is critical, like a sleep schedule. I will put my clients on a sleep schedule. I'm like, okay, what time are you going to bed? What time are you getting up? What relaxation things are you doing? There's a lot on like the Calm app or Headspace to do some meditations before you go to bed. Or if you need to during the day, let's say your anxiety is really high, what kind of meditations can you put on? How about music? Are you listening to helpful music that can help calm the nervous system? How much caffeine? Anxiety and caffeine are like enemies. I'm going to tell you, they are like enemies. So the more caffeine you're drinking, the more anxiety, more anxious you're going to feel. So I will do an assessment on how much caffeine and sugar are you consuming in a day. So these are important things to explore when you are struggling with feeling anxious, and your body gives you that information.
Yeah. So I was going to talk a little bit about, I think the self-identification is really, really important on anxiety. I want to, at some point, kind of circle back and talk about identifying in others and how to manage that maybe in relationships. But can you talk a little bit about like bad coping mechanisms, what that might look like? I think it's important to kind of speak the truths into them. You already talked a little bit about substance abuse, for example, and other coping mechanisms. But can we kind of talk about that for a few minutes? Because I just think it's important to name those.
One device is causing more anxiety. We're the most anxious that we've ever been in history. And we're seeing lots of neuroscience and research coming out in journal articles on what the phone is doing to the brain. We know developmentally in young kids, it's creating more anxiety. It's definitely increasing anxiety. And I just heard a celebrity, I think his name's Jelly Roll. He's
Sarah is a Jelly Roll fan.
Okay, well, he just said he totally got rid of his phone. I was like, whoa, because that social media was causing him to feel more anxious and depressed, and technology in general was impacting his mental health. And so he kind of cold turkeyed it, and not everybody can do that. I realize.
Jelly Roll probably has an assistant that just keeps his phone
exactly.
for him.
But the point being that more people are talking about how social media and technology is making them feel emotionally about themselves and like what it's doing to their nervous system. So the phone in general is the number one thing I'm seeing beyond substances that I think is having a major impact on how you feel anxious, because you're comparing yourself to other people. You feel not good enough. It's creating a lot of shame. And then workaholics. Okay.
Because that's another piece of the phone, because it's not just the apps and social media on the phone. It's the connectiveness of the phone too that I see of like, I need to continue I sleep with mine by my bedstand. It's a bad behavior, I know. But like, just the constant connectedness.
Yes, constant. And if you're not connecting, you feel like you're dropping balls and you're doing this and we're missing the human interaction. What helps anxiety the most is sleep. We talked about caffeine. Is human interaction. It's to be in relationship with other people that are healthy, that are emotionally available. And it might be starting with a therapist. It might be somebody that you are in a support group with. It might be someone that is also on a healing journey. Whatever that looks like, human interaction is what we're missing. We are more disconnected, even though we have these phones, than we ever have been. And that's impacting mental health and anxiety and depression. And then we've turned more to like, let me work more. Let me be more disconnected. These are ways we disconnect through work, through substances, through activities that are taking us away from being present in the moment, because it's too much to feel and deal. But we know the more you feel, the more you heal.
I love that. The more you feel, the more you heal. So, and I wanted to chat. We have like a few more minutes here, but to talk a little bit about anxiety in others. If you are in a relationship, maybe where somebody is dealing with anxiety, or maybe doesn't know they're dealing with anxiety, or what that might look like in a partner, whether it be spouse, kid, what that may look like. And then I want to make sure we end on coping strategies. I would say one thing I have learned, and you have driven home to me in the past 4 years, is that anxiety lives in the body. So to me, a lot of it, the way I cope with mine is through exercise and movement. So if we talk about identifying in others and then coping.
Okay. Here's one thing I want to say is most people don't even know they're anxious. Like they're like, I'm not anxious because it feels like I need to be in a corner shaking. Like most people are not going to say they're anxious because that's not something they've been taught about. So that's the first thing I want to say. They're going to use language like I'm afraid, I'm worried. I'm worried. I'm worried or something, or I'm concerned, something like that might be more how they might go about it. But with a loved one, you're going to, in a relationship, I would love to normalize talking about how you feel. One, because half the time we don't even know how we feel because we weren't taught that. So what's going on for you might be a way you say that. What are you thinking about? Because our thoughts create a lot of anxiety that creates feelings that live in the body. So what are your, like someone will kind of wander off and I'll go, what did you just notice? Like that's a question I'll ask. What did you just notice? And they're like, oh, I've got, I was worried about, not getting this project done that's due tomorrow, or I didn't return this phone call, or okay, those are starting to they're starting to share worries and go, oh yeah, tell me more about that. Yeah, I just feel overwhelmed. Overwhelmed's another word. I feel so overwhelmed. I feel so stressed about, and what you're doing is you're helping create a relationship that you can share vulnerably what's really going on inside. What are your thoughts? What are your fears? What keeps you up at night? That's another one that I ask people. What keeps you up at night? Oh, it's worrying about, my kids going to college and are they going to be okay, handling it? Or I'm worried about, money, or I'm worried about, how I'm going to pay the bills. Whatever it is, start talking about it in your relationship. Start being curious. Have a curious mindset, not an interrogation, because then you're going to shut someone down, because it's going to feel like you're up here and the person's down here. So if I start going, well, what do you mean? Like, what are you? See, my tone changed, and it kind of can feel like you're here and I'm here.
Yeah.
And anytime there feels like this kind of hierarchical, I one up you, then someone's going to shut down and not talk. And someone's going to talk if they want to, and if they don't, they don't. And you can say, do you want to talk about this? And they say, no, there's really nothing you can do except say, hey, if you do want to talk about this, just know I'm available. And I'm holding all the compassion and empathy for this conversation and for you.
I think that's a challenge, that whole hierarchy conversation. Because again, I think especially like in a relationship, if somebody is dealing with it and you're trying to address it, it can turn into argumentative conversation. I think we're all guilty of those conversations. That's very difficult.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're all because what we want to do is connect with each other. This is the bottom line. We want to feel seen. In couples therapy, the number one thing people would tell me is I want them to hear me. And I want them to understand what I'm saying. I want them to see where I'm coming from and my intentions. This is a lot, right? It's really what we want in all humans.
Sure.
And we want to know that you still care and love me at the end of the day. That's what everybody wants. Now, how we get there is the challenge, because I have my own perception of what I feel is happening. You have your own perception. You have your own need. I have my own need. And then we have a hard time kind of seeing each other in it. Because if my anxiety gets triggered and your shame gets triggered, now we're off to our own core wounds. That's a whole nother conversation on how to work through that. But that's where the mirroring we've talked about, saying what I heard you say is, that makes sense to me, offering empathy, and that, oh man, that is so painful that you've had to walk through that, or that can hurt so bad when we feel like we're not included. I mean, these are things that we don't want to turn the conversation back on me. So something like if I go, yeah, I had that happen yesterday. Now I've switched the conversation from the person sharing how they feel. Now it's about me and what happened to me.
Yeah, it's icky. Yeah. Okay, real quickly, some coping strategies.
Okay. Number one, we did the breathing.
Yep.
Okay. Number two, for anxiety, it's super, super important that you learn how to center yourself through your feet, through your body, through sounds. So if you need to put on some soothing music, you need to put on some, what we call bilateral music, which is, you can get that on iTunes or Amazon. Just look up bilateral music. What it does is it's like you're being rocked from right you'll hear sounds right, left. It's like you're being rocked as a baby. It calms you down. That's why walking, it's bilateral. That's why I love walking for people in anxiety. You're moving it up and out of the body. Yoga's great. I recommend yoga. I do recommend journaling or writing it out. And I'm telling you, when you say, what is my biggest worry today? What do I need to know today? These are journal prompts. Like, those are super helpful. Get it out, write it in your notes on your phone. Before I send a text that I want to blow something up, I write it out on my phone. And then I'm like, let me sleep on it, because get your sleep, get in a sleep regimen, get in a sleep routine, do meditations to help you sleep. These are important pieces. And then process what you've probably put off and not wanted to face. I will tell you, will change your life. It'll help you become less anxious. And then
food sets you free.
It does. And I know it's hard, trust me, and it's worth it.
Yeah. I love this. We could probably talk for hours about anxiety. This was so helpful. I know we were all over the place, but there was some great practical information in there about anxiety. You know, my takeaways, it lives in the body, and write it out to get it out. Those are kind of my keys right there. And that everyone has some form of anxiety, and being able to be empathetic and help others identify its key. So, Kristen, as always, thank you. I will say we're going to be back here next month in May for Mental Health Awareness Month. Sounds like we're going to talk a little bit about Noble Act, which is our contribution in the city side around mental health. And we may even have some special guests with us during that time, which I'm really excited. But as always, if someone's in crisis mode or just needs help right now, where do they go?
988. 988. Call, text 24 hours a day. And let's get that out more. If you know someone in crisis, if you just want to talk about it in conversation in your family, just say, did you know about 988? Have you ever used it? Would you ever consider using it? If you needed it or someone else needed it, talk about it. Let's normalize talking about this with friends, family, and coworkers.
I love it. Thank you, Kristen Boice. Stay safe, everyone. We'll see you back here next month for another edition of Mental Health Monday. Awesome.